Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. Today we're covering a very difficult topic, one that galvanized the entire world over the last year: the death of George Floyd in police custody and the trial of his killer. This could be a slightly controversial topic, but I think it's important to explain what happened in this case, and stick to the facts of what we know. This is in no way an attempt to gloss over the emotional impact of this murder, and yes, we can now call it murder, but we want to focus on the facts. Anyway, let's discuss the case itself and the ruling that was reached on Tuesday. Before we do, we're getting really close to 200,000 subscribers, so if you want to support us and get more content like this, then be sure to subscribe. Thank you. On May 25th, 2020, officers from the Minneapolis Police Department responded to a call from a convenience store employee claiming that Mr. Floyd had purchased cigarettes with counterfeit money while intoxicated. Two officers, J. Alexander Koenig and Thomas Lane, initially responded, finding Floyd in the driver's seat of his SUV. Lane drew his pistol, although it's unclear why he did. Lane then reholstered his pistol and yanked Floyd from his car before placing him under arrest. The officers' reports state that they believe they were responding to a drunk and disorderly man, but video footage shows that Floyd was not attempting to resist at the time that he was placed in handcuffs. After a few minutes of questioning, the officers moved Floyd across the street to their vehicle, but he collapsed in distress, claiming that he was claustrophobic and refusing to enter the police SUV. It's at this time that he began telling officers that he couldn't breathe. Two more officers arrived at the scene: Tao and Derek Chauvin. Tao has been subject to 6 formal complaints and a brutality lawsuit, while Chauvin has faced 17 complaints and been involved in 3 shootings, one of which was fatal. Chauvin and Koenig attempted to wrestle Floyd into the police vehicle, while Tao stood guard. Chauvin then inextricably pulled Floyd out of the vehicle and onto the street, forcing him face down. All 4 officers then gathered around Floyd, Chauvin kneeling on his neck, Koenig on his trunk, Lane on his legs, and Tao continued to stand guard. Floyd began pleading with the officers to get off him because he couldn't breathe. Chauvin ordered him to get into the vehicle. Floyd agreed, but told Chauvin that he was unable to do so, owing to Chauvin continuing to kneel on his neck, even after the officers called emergency medical assistance. Ultimately, Chauvin ignored Floyd's claims that he was unable to breathe at least 16 times, only removing his knee from Floyd's neck when the EMTs told him to do so, 9.5 minutes later, well after Floyd had fallen unconscious. Floyd was then pronounced dead at a nearby hospital shortly afterward. For the last few minutes of the incident, it's unclear whether Koenig and Lane continued to restrain Floyd, but it is clear that they did not move to aid him, nor did Tao, who became confrontational with bystanders filming the incident and pleading the officers to stop endangering Floyd's life. The wheels of justice began spinning into motion almost immediately, as the Minneapolis Police Department fired all 4 officers the day after Floyd's death, and prosecutors brought criminal charges against them. Chauvin was charged with 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, and 2nd-degree manslaughter. Tao, Koenig, and Lane were charged with being accessories to murder, and they're set to be tried together beginning August 23rd. The incident touched off a year of major protests against racism and police violence across the globe, from Minnesota to Capitol Hill to the Premier League, whose players knelt in solidarity while wearing shirts emblazoned with Black Lives Matter. Legislatures across the country have begun introducing police reform bills, and earlier this month, Maryland became the first state to repeal their law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights, overriding the veto of Republican Governor Larry Hogan. This is clearly just the start of a much wider conversation about the role of police and the way that police departments and officers across the US act and react in relation to crimes they encounter. Obviously though, everyone was still interested to see what would happen to the police officers involved in the case which kick-started this conversation. On Tuesday, following 10.5 hours of deliberation, a jury in Minnesota returned its verdicts on Chauvin's conduct, guilty on all 3 counts: 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, and 2nd-degree manslaughter. At first blush, obtaining convictions of all 3 counts seems confusing, as murder and manslaughter generally require different types of mental state. But looking into the specifics of the conviction, the compatibility becomes clearer. The second-degree murder charge was under Minnesota's felony murder rule, which punishes an unintentional killing during the commission of a felony, though not a felony bad enough to warrant the conviction for a first-degree felony murder. The third-degree murder conviction fell under the category commonly called depraved heart murder, where a perpetrator convicts an eminently dangerous act with total disregard for the lives of others, resulting in death. Finally, the second-degree manslaughter conviction punished Chauvin for his gross negligence that resulted in Floyd's death, because it created an unreasonable risk that he would die.
State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court File Number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, Juror Foreperson, Juror Number 19. Same caption, verdict, Count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by Jury Foreperson, Juror Number 19. Same caption, verdict, Count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury Foreperson 019.
Following the reading of the verdict, Judge Peter Cahill revoked Chauvin's bail and set his sentencing at 8 weeks from now. When determining Chauvin's sentence, Judge Cahill will take into account factors such as the presence of a child among the crowd of bystanders, and the power dynamic between the officers and the bystanders pleading for Floyd's life. If Chauvin's sentences run consecutively, he faces 75 years in prison. 40 for second-degree murder, 25 for third-degree murder, and 10 for manslaughter. State sentencing guidelines recommend 12.5 years for each murder charge and about 4 for the manslaughter charge, but prosecutors have requested these tougher sentences. Although we might have some conclusions, this saga is still far from over, as we still have to wait for the sentencing, appeals, and the cases against Tao, Koenig, and Lane to conclude. This case is obviously significant for many reasons, including the fact that it kicked off a number of conversations about policing, while it obviously still being a deeply personal case for those impacted and those who knew George Floyd. We'd be interested to know your thoughts though. Has justice been served in this case? Should more be done to stop things like this from happening in the future? Or should changes be made to how police forces in the US and around the world operate? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon.